This week on Theme Park Workshop, the podcast, we're talking about Disney Genie. It's still a mess, and we have some thoughts. And Mark Woodbury has been promoted to chairman and CEO of Universal Parks and Resorts. What does that mean for the future of Universal Orlando?
Ooh, I'm wondering too. But after that, stay tuned because we're going into some IAAPA announcements, some Destination D23 announcements, Guardians of the Galaxy, Galactic Starcruiser, and even more than that.
More than the Galactic Starcruiser?
Yeah, Jonathan, more.
Imagine.
So tighten your seatbelts. We're about to go into hyperspace because this is the Park Workshop. We'll go with it.
There we go. All right. Let's keep it quick. All right. Welcome back to Theme Park Workshop, the podcast. I'm Jonathan, and I'm here with Adam.
Hi.
We're 8 episodes in. You'd think by now we would have the intro and the introductions down, but all we can really manage is just, hi.
Yeah, intro, outro, day the podcast is released. It's all in flux. We're just getting started. We'll figure out a system. I mean, we do have a system. I'm kind of underselling us. Like, I think Monday is our new episode day. The outro, eventually we'll remember to put everything in there. But if not, you just go to the show notes. There's some cool stuff down there. Have fun with the descriptions, but there's also cool links. Spotify people, I know you've got the special polls. YouTubers, you got the comments.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this week we're just going to dive right into the show and talk about some listener comments. As Adam was saying, we have the polls on Spotify, and y'all have some stuff to say. So, Adam, what do our listeners have to say?
So, again, to reiterate, and on Spotify mobile, and I emphasize mobile because for whatever reason, the desktop version doesn't quite have it yet. I'll put a poll and a question, and you can find it on just about every episode we have up there. So the first question that people started answering was on episode 3. What's the future of Jurassic World at Islands of Adventure? The question was, do you want more Jurassic World at Universal Orlando? And people said, yes, give us more Jurassic World. That's been the one-person consensus. Thank you, one person, for voting. I do appreciate that.
I can't disagree with that.
Yeah, no. And then we had this one's a comment. From episode 5, top 10 attractions we avoid at all costs. This is also from Spotify. So as you may remember, Jonathan and I had different lists for what attractions we would prefer not to ride again. And so I asked our listeners, who do you agree with most? And the one person who voted bring back Balthazar Banshee. I'm pretty sure that one person was Balthazar Banshee himself. But if you are a Balthazar Banshee stan, make sure you let him know, because I'm tired of hearing about it from him, how much he does not get the attention he deserves. So go ahead and give him some love on Twitter at Disney Banshee.
He gets plenty of attention.
He does. But we also had a more in-depth comment. The other one, I had put that as an option as kind of a joke, and people decided to play along with it, and I appreciate that. But we have a reply from Jurassic Mouse 03 on Spotify. Jurassic Mouse said that the attraction that they would not want to ride ever again is the magic carpets of Aladdin at Magic Kingdom Adventureland. They said, Aladdin is my favorite Disney animated movie, but when there's another spinner in the park, and even more of it being Dumbo, I see no reason to ride it. And I believe that's kind of the consensus there.
That kind of makes me rethink putting Astro Orbiter on there. I think Astro Orbiter I put on there because it was a capacity blunder. But if you think about the spinning of the 3 spinning rides, Aladdin is far less creative than Astro Orbiter. I think Astro Orbiter is just plagued by poor civil engineering.
That's a good point. I still stand by my Astro Orbiter just because I don't get sick on Aladdin. I also don't wait for Aladdin, so it's not a very strong opinion that I have.
This is true.
And our last comment comes from our Poseidon's Fury episode 6, part 1 of our Universal Relics series. I do hope to do more episodes in that series before too long. I think it's an interesting and a fun one. And this comes from my dad. The question was, is Poseidon's Fury a cheesy leftover of a bygone era, or is it a cult classic that should be preserved? And he said, preserve it, as long as people keep enjoying it. A very diplomatic response. He said, just like the ET experience, neither is overly thrilling, but people like them, even the cheesy parts. And if you listen to our episodes, you know, we definitely agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's been our listener responses. These polls are open until the end of the year because I figure our audience is going to grow and I don't want people to miss out because I had it open for a week. So go ahead, if you're listening to this, leave a comment down below. We might read it on the air. And same with Spotify. Answer those polls, give Balthasar some love, and answer with responses. And we have the same for just about every episode, and we'll have one for this episode too if you look down below.
Yeah, so the next thing we have on our agenda is we got to talk about this awesome documentary that was dropped on YouTube, Defunct Land, Fast Pass, A Complicated History. Basically going into the history of Fast Pass, why it was brought around, and whether or not it was actually effective, all done with an incredible original score and animation, and just Kevin Perger did a wonderful job, worth every second of the wait. And honestly, can't praise it enough. I don't want to say anything else about it other than that Disney be crazy.
It really is a fantastic video. Like if Twitter, theme park Twitter, if the theme park community ever had a holiday, I mean, I guess it technically is IAAPA, but really it should be the day Defunct Land's Fast Pass documentary came out, because I've not seen a community so celebrate something like this ever. And it really does deserve it. And it's got universal appeal. My uncle has no interest in theme parks whatsoever. Maybe he likes a roller coaster or two, but theme parks, he really enjoyed this documentary. He found it on his own. I didn't share it with him or anyone, and he sent it back to me saying, this is really interesting. So if you have not checked it out, I'll have a link in the show notes because it really is worth checking out.
Absolutely. And also at IAAPA, to kind of jump off what you were saying, there was a Legends panel of Thierry Koo, Phil Hameda, and Scott Trowbridge, all absolute legends for creating the amazing adventures of Spider-Man. I love this attraction. You love this attraction. Disney hates that it exists because it makes web slingers look like superstar limo. And
oof,
as the legends were talking about, they were like, we cut scenes, we did these things for pacing, all things that are so good to think about that, Disney doesn't think about unless Joe Rohde or Scott Trowbridge are there, because, Scott actually worked on Galaxy's Edge. But perhaps the biggest reveal from this panel was the fact that when asked about their biggest mistake, Thierry Koo openly admitted that he should have stopped management from building Fast and Furious Supercharged, a rarity in the theme park world in which people with incredibly high profiles are told to not talk or to publicly decry any work that they've done for fear of being fired or let go. These multi-million-dollar attractions with actors and people who could be easily offended, but no, Terry's just out there saying, man, Fast and Furious Supercharged was a trash dumpster fire.
Okay, that's not what he said. He was very diplomatic about it if you listen to the clip. Because his boss is now the chairman and CEO of Universal Parks and Resorts. Someone asked him what his greatest regret was, and professional regret was. And he said letting them open it. He did say it was a good ride. It just wasn't what it should have been. But the funny part was the crowd of professionals. This isn't Comic-Con. This is a crowd of professionals erupted in thunderous applause at the admission. But of course, don't just listen to this panel just for that moment. As Jonathan was saying, it's really interesting. They go into kind of how they didn't know what they were doing as far as what their limits were. They're just like, well, let's try it. They were in a warehouse in Burbank, putting together this thing with the only goal of it being the best, most unique ride to open at that theme park. And I mean, 22 years later, obviously they succeeded. Even with the little updates they made to the video, the base of the ride has stayed the same. So definitely go check that out. It'll be in the show notes. I don't want to spoil anymore.
Absolutely. And the next thing on our agenda is that Disney Genie is a mess. It's bad. It's terrible. And Seth Kubersky wrote about it. Disney Genie, it has many flaws. It claims that it can personalize your day, but the personalization is limited to perhaps a restaurant. Maybe you say, "Hey, I like Star Wars." Disney Genie plans your day and is like, "All right, you're gonna go see Voyage of the Little Mermaid and Disney Junior live on stage, and you're gonna get lunch at Docking Bay 7, and then after lunch you're gonna go to the Droid Depot." So that's a great day for any Star Wars fan. I know I would be pleased, and Disney Genie's pleased with it. I don't think anybody's fooled by it, or maybe they are. Maybe people are fooled. Maybe people come from out of town and think I need to do what Genie recommends, and that's going to be what the best Disney has to offer is. And as everybody has been saying, that's going to ultimately come back to bite Disney in the butt, because people are going to be like, "Oh, I thought Disney would be cooler than this, not this lame." People who don't know the attractions, don't necessarily speak English, just follow the Disney Genie instructions, assuming that it is, what they assume it to be. So in addition to the increased prices and everything else, you're going to have people coming away with less satisfactory experiences using Disney Genie. And a lot of people have said it's ultimately going to lead to, the crash of Disney when Epic Universe opens and Disney falls flat on its face because they've just been cost cutting for so long.
Yeah, and if you go in and read Seth Kubersky's article, and I love to shout him out, one, because he's one of the best in the business that I know of anyway, but he was also kind enough to offer a little bit of his time to our show 2 years ago. If you check out his article in Orlando Weekly, he shows 4 ways to stop it from really just draining the money out of you and really making it worth your while, if it's worth your while. And it seems it's weird. It's really like a thing you've got to work against to make it worth the most. So the free version I've heard is absolutely useless. And I watched another vlog from the Diz, Craig Williams over at the Diz, wanted to do his day according to Disney Genie as an experiment, and it didn't quite work out for him the way he wanted. As Seth says, the wait times are not always correct, and it doesn't really fit in with what you want your experience to be. Like the line for Haunted Mansion was just out past the riverboat or something like that. It's like, this is the best thing to do right now. I said, no, it's really not. I don't want to do this. And he got the most out of his day by going against Disney Genie. And even then, just trying to work around this busy day, it just ended up not being a happy affair at all. The paid version I've heard is somewhat better because it comes with the lightning lanes if you pay $15. And of course, the individual lightning lanes. It's annoying that you have to pay for it, but I've not heard anyone say, "Oh yeah, that was the worst." It's mostly like, "Oh yeah, I didn't have to worry about the virtual line for Ratatouille," or "I didn't have to wait 3 hours for this one thing. I didn't have to melt in Slinky Dog Dash." So it's a bit of a bummer that Touring Plans, an independent organization, an independent app and subscription, has done years better than this system. But maybe it's because they're doing it tiered. That's not where, I don't know. I'm less inclined to try it when I go to Disney again, and just kind of
what Disney Genie works for, and I think a little bit of this is in the Fast Pass documentary, is that Disney is really trying to cater to the once in a lifetime Disney visit, the big visit that you save up a ton of money for, and you're willing to pay anything to make sure that you get to do everything that you want to do while you're at Disney World. And with Fast Pass, it was more equal opportunity, and it was also harder for the people who were doing their once in a lifetime trips to take advantage of Fast Pass because they needed somebody to explain it to them. They needed to be prepared 60 days in advance for a 6 a.m. drop of, Fast Passes. And so you had all these, like, the Fast Pass system did not serve the out-of-towners extremely well. And neither did boarding groups or any of those other things. And so what Disney Genie has done is it basically says, hey, guess what? We're going to take away this thing that's causing so much problems for out-of-towners, which is Fast Pass, and we're just going to make it so that you can buy it. And now, guess what? You get here day of, you're confused, you got to the park 2 hours late, your family's running behind. Hey, just pay us, you know, a little extra money per person, and now your whole family can get on Rise of the Resistance today versus having to pay to come back an entire extra day to ride Rise of the Resistance because it had a 2 hour line or it was broken down or they reinstated boarding groups or whatever may happen.
So moving on, we're going back to Universal Studios, and there's actually some big news here. And Jonathan, I know you were very excited about this, so I'll run down the story and then I'll toss it back to you because I feel like you've got more thoughts on this than I do. Although I think it's pretty exciting. But Mark Woodbury has been promoted from vice chairman to chairman and CEO of Universal Parks and Resorts. Tom Williams, the current chairman and CEO, he is retiring in March. So this is a pretty big shakeup. And it's not just because there's a shift in the company, although every time there's a shift in a company like Disney or Universal Parks, it's kind of a big deal, as we saw with Chapek and Josh D'Amaro and Bob Iger and all those folks. So here's a little background. Tom Williams was part of the team that opened Universal Studios Florida before transitioning to park president when the Universal Studios park became a resort in 1999. His position expanded, as did that canvas, transforming the theme park venture from a studio park that could in 1990 to the sprawling vision it is today, with resorts all around the world. And Mark Woodbury, he's led plan and design strategy as vice chairman around the world, as well as serving as Universal creative president. And because of that, through that, he's been a major figure for just about every attraction. If you go and watch old Universal Studios Islands of Adventure footage, like those Travel Channel documentaries, you'll see him, very calmly hyping up the rides. Like, yeah, we've got the Dueling Dragons. It's a great time. I think you're going to like it. And of course, plans a lot more than that little improv I just did. But yeah, this is pretty big. Mark Woodbury is a really well-respected name in the theme park community. From what I understand, I've not heard anything bad about him. Again, I don't have my ear to the ground like someone like Seth Kubersky or any of those folks might. But I mean, when I heard Mark Woodbury's being promoted, I'm like, oh, I know that name. I get excited when I see him in videos. Just kind of the persona he gives off. This is pretty great. But Jonathan, what were you thinking because I know you were very excited when this was announced.
Absolutely. I've grown up, watching these Travel Channel documentaries, seeing Mark Woodbury and all the projects that he's worked on and led, and he's just super creative. He's, he often worked with Terry Koo, who we talked about earlier, as, they worked as creative partners in crime to bring so many of our favorite attractions to life. And, you do see like he's just a very personable person. He has personality. He's comfortable in front of the camera, and creative is where he comes from. He's creative first, business person second. And as being president of Universal Creative, I think what a lot of people are pointing out is that moving to CEO of Universal Parks and Resorts is what Comcast is doing is a very different strategy than what Disney is doing, where Disney is promoting Bob Chapek, who came from basically products and experiences, and like retail. His background is very much in merchandising, retail. Bob Chapek has never touched a creative project in his life, and he's the one who's approving the budgets, who's saying Imagineering to do this, work on this, approve this, etc. Whereas Mark Woodbury, he's been very hands-on in the creative design and development of entire theme parks, leading them creatively, where his main job is to, make sure the creative choices are correct. And now he's the one in charge of Universal Parks and Resorts. And you combine that with Comcast's strategy, which appears to be, we'll invest in these parks as much as y'all can create creative stuff to get a new attraction a year, as long as we keep seeing the return and as long as corporate synergy remains high. And I do think that's interesting that the Universal parks have because they have to license certain franchises for use, and their parks just have a very different structure than Disney, where at Disney, the Disney parks are just Disney properties, and that's it. Whereas with Comcast, because Comcast is so big and has so many different divisions, opening something like the Today Cafe in Universal Studios Florida, well, it's a small thing. It did refurbish a place that few people visited, that was kind of dilapidated. It gave it a new menu, a fresh feel, helps improve the entrance of the park. And you've tied it into a corporate franchise to promote the Today Show. And while some will scoff at that and say, oh, Universal's becoming so commercialized, at the end of the day, their strategy allows the parks to remain updated. There's a reason why Universal Studios Florida has only 2 attractions from opening day. And it's because of how, even through all its different owners, Universal Parks and Resorts has, focused on, if we can get a corporate cross promotion out of it, let's do it. And that's where you're getting a lot of the really cool stuff that's like Velocicoaster. A lot of people talk about that was a decision corporate said, we want a new Jurassic World roller coaster. We got this trilogy. We're really wanting to build up on the hype. What kind of Jurassic World attraction can you do here, even though it's Jurassic Park, we need it themed to Jurassic World? And they worked with that. They took that premise and they ran with it, and they did a wonderful job. And of course, corporate brought in the actors to make sure that it all fit together. And so you get that sort of thing. And at Disney, the design process is a lot longer and slower. And I know there's so many jokes about Tron construction, but the only reason Tron isn't open yet is because Disney wants to just save it to have it to promote later. It's like, if Disney wanted to be done with Tron, they could have been done with Tron at this point. And I don't think that you can really say that about anything Universal has done in the past couple of years. In fact, they're usually opening things too early. they're not even done with them before they've already announced an opening date. Whereas Disney is like, presumably Guardians has been testing for months based off the video that we saw. And it's just going to get the footage in and be finalized. And of course, Tron construction has kept the railroad closed for like 3 years, and it just, having Mark, but to take it all and bring it back to Mark, having Mark, a creative person who's been hands-on in every creative project of the past 20 years at Universal, be the CEO, is going to be such a wonderful move to compete with Disney, who's got somebody from retail who's never done a creative thing in his life.
Yeah, and going back to the Legends panel talking about Spider-Man, and I'm thinking also our Horror Nights episode, and Tom Williams and Mark Woodbury, how it kind of feels like the start of a new era for, Universal's gone through a lot of eras, but in this Deadline article that I'll put in the show notes, that kind of goes over not really the press release, but just kind of the general announcement where I got a lot of this background information. Brian Roberts, the chairman and CEO of Comcast, said that Tom Williams' journey has been the journey of Universal Parks itself. His vision and leadership has made parks a vital and vibrant business and has helped define modern theme park entertainment for us and the entire industry. If you hear any story about Universal, it's easy to joke about, but it's also, I'm thinking about that quote from Moneyball, where it's hard not to get romantic about baseball. It's hard not to get romantic about the Universal Studios history, where they've always had these big ideas for the most part, and it didn't always work. Opening day, we all know what happened opening day. We don't need to go on about it here. And the Legends panel, they talk about how it really was just a scrappy company or a scrappy group of folks trying to figure out how to build a theme park. They did it once, but how do you do it different and do it again and all that jazz, and learning things from that. Like, one thing they learned was, okay, everything here is going to be a normal attraction. We'll just have an extra element to it. Like Dudley Do Right, it's just a flume ride. We'll just put a roller coaster track at the end of the drop. It'll go underground. Or Popeye, it's a raft ride, but it's going to have a drop, and so on and so forth. The free fall tower, instead of falling, you'll shoot up, things like that. But Spider-Man was the one of a kind thing. And I also think about the beginnings of Halloween Horror Nights. The way it started was a way to get people to actually come to the park again after that rough opening year. And really, it started out with Julie Zimmerman being handed this task, like, you think you can put together a Halloween party for the park? And she's like, yeah, we'll figure something out. And basically created like the Rat Lady, which has become a phenomenon in the Horror Nights community, and created the whole event. really, and Bill and Ted, which is beloved. Bill and Ted, the Halloween show, not the movies, but just by like, can we do it? Well, let's try it out. Okay, great. We figured it out. And to see how it's evolved into what it has today, and these two gentlemen being a part of that, of course, with Tom Williams now stepping out, having guided it from that scrappy thing to really a real competitor to Disney, and something that we prefer in a lot of ways, honestly, to something that's still expanding. And now seeing where this new creative guy, I mean, he's not a new creative guy, a long stay creative guy like Mark Woodbury, what he'll bring in the same role that Tom Williams did. It'll be interesting to see, and I'm looking forward to it. And I think there's a lot to be excited about. And also, like, you'll want to go in and look up the history of Universal Parks. There's not like one good resource for it, but I guess one place to check would be the unofficial Halloween Horror Nights guide. I think I've got the name wrong, but it's written by Christopher Ripley. It's a book on the making of that exhibition, theme park history, all these history theme park YouTube channels. It's really an interesting story to see how this thing has grown. I never knew Tom Williams was a part of it, but now that I do know that, I think it's really fascinating and all that jazz.
Absolutely. If I had to recommend one resource, this book is a little outdated, because it ended, or it was published in 2014. But Universal Orlando: The Unofficial Story by Nick Sim is a book that I greatly enjoyed reading in my middle school years. I had it on my Kindle Fire SD. It was the original Kindle Fire. Did not even have a high definition screen.
Wow.
But I just remember really enjoying that book.
Yeah, I do have the right title for the Christopher Ripley book, by the way, now, because I can see it. Halloween Horror Nights Unofficial, the story and guide. It's definitely worth the read for the information alone.
Awesome. So to conclude that, very excited for where Mark Woodbury takes things. And, Adam and I will be there for Universal's Epic Universe grand opening. Surely we'll fly out. We'll, be there on the soft.
Fly out. I guess we don't know what the future will bring. Maybe we'll be living in Canada. I expect to still be here, but yeah, I'll definitely take work off for that. Even if nothing works, I think it'll be quite the experience.
I also expect to still be here, but something about I guess, what is it? 2025 is when it's going to open. 2024.
I think that's a projected date.
It feels so far away. It's going to come.
But it feels so close at the same time. I can almost taste it. I have no idea what I'm tasting, but it seems scrumptious.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, let's go on before I make more bad food analogies.
Veggie fruit, veggie fruit, veggie fruit, veggie fruit. I simply have to tell you that my friends who are singing are delectable. Meals are defined as long as you can dine with fruit and vegetables. They're good for you, everyone. They make your meals a lot of fun, like a carnival.
So I mentioned earlier IAAPA. We mostly mentioned it in the context of the Spider-Man panel and a few other things, but a lot of interesting things came out there. Seth Kubersky, talked about him again. Honestly, just follow him on Twitter. Follow him wherever you will. He's awesome. Also in Orlando Weekly, he did a nice little rundown of some of the lesser known things. One of the bigger ticket items from there, I guess to say, was Legoland Florida has unveiled the new Peppa Pig theme park, some new details about that. The balloon ride is going to be accessible for wheelchairs, and it's now a certified autism center, which is pretty exciting stuff. Along those same lines, Give Kids the World Village will be given an animaker space where the families there can learn about designing and programming audio animatronics. I'm quoting from the article from the company that makes Disney's robotic characters. That's some pretty exciting stuff to kind of make the whole theme park experience more accessible to folks who would have a harder time, I guess, experiencing it. And Jonathan, if you ever have a thought, just jump in.
Okay.
There's some other kind of funny ones, like there's a Dogecoin coaster. We'll see how far that gets off the showroom floor. The idea of it apparently was it'll go up and down, rise and fall. It's virtual, by the way. They're not building the track in real time. They're virtually building the track in real time, I suppose. It's a simulator, and it goes up and down with the price of Doge. Nice novelty. I don't know what theme park would buy it. I don't know what amusement park would buy it.
I know what amusement park would buy it.
Don't say Six Flags.
No, I was gonna say Fun Spot.
I would maybe. Although speaking of Fun Spot, they have a new thing coming out, but not in Orlando or not in Florida. Over in Atlanta, they're building a new roller coaster over there that is going to be built by Rocky Mountain Construction. It's called Airy Force One. So it's not going to be on iDrive. It's going to be in Atlanta. They got a new thing coming out.
Yeah, to kind of bounce off of that, Fun Spot has done a really good job of splitting investment between their parks on a pretty regular basis. I think when they bought the Atlanta location, a lot of people were confused because it was kind of like, this is literally just a mini golf course and a go-kart track and a fun center, like an arcade. That was like basically, it was like very much more of a family fun center than a theme park. So the fact that this park with no roller coasters, hardly any rides, is getting one of the biggest RMCs ever built is kind of a testament to how Fun Spot works. They have their 3 parks and they make a lot of money off of small stuff, arcades, obviously ride admission, go-karts, and then they reinvest it every couple years into something big. And then in the in-between years, they do super small stuff. Like I know Fun Spot Orlando got a new flat this year. Fun Spot Kissimmee got a new, I think, relocated kind of off-the-shelf coaster 2 years ago. But now when it's time for their big capital investment, multi-million-dollar coaster, it's going to the park that needs it the most. And I think that's really cool. Like even stuff like after Fun Spot Orlando opened, you got the Mind Blower open at Kissimmee, which was a pretty big coaster. And now it's Atlanta's turn. So I think honestly, Fun Spot could very easily become a local chain across America. I think it's going to take some time because they're not growing super fast.
Mm-hmm.
But depending on how they do it, they have a lot of potential because, especially in Orlando, the reason why they work is because they're less expensive. So they appeal to a lot of the lower income crowd who can't afford the big parks by providing a similar experience. But also they're open later. And that's a huge deal in Orlando where the nightlife, especially on iDrive, is a really big thing. So it's like, hey, I just got done with my day at Disney, which closed at 7 or 8. Fun Spot's open till midnight, or 1 or 2 a.m. Let's go there and hang out and grab some food, get some night rides on White Lightning or Mind Blower, do some go-karts, have a fun time. And so it really has become a kind of a hub of nightlife, and that's how it thrives, which I think is a really smart strategy in a market where all the theme parks like to close early.
Yeah. I think you'd like this because this sounds almost like Turtle Trek to me, which I know is was one of your favorite attractions.
It's in such a dilapidated state these days.
But I did get to see it in its prime with you.
You did.
So I'm happy for that because I got to experience Jonathan and his element. Emotion, who created the Undersea Explorer experience at Icon Park's Sea Life Orlando Aquarium, they are making 360-degree wildlife documentaries. And apparently the reception of that for Seth was pretty positive. There's some he called it blocking coding artifacts was still going on with that. But other than that, is pretty interesting. And speaking of VR, AR, apparently Steamroller Studios has done a augmented reality haunt, and the reception of that, it sounds really interesting. I'll read from the article here. Visitors to the haunting of Olivia entered a Victorian sitting room and were strapped into a motion simulating couch and used handheld augmented reality screens to hunt digital ghosts that cause physical objects to fly off the walls. And he mentions that Universal did something similar to this at Horror Nights. I believe he's referring to the Repository Plus, like extra charge experience they did a couple years back for Legendary Truth. That part of Horror Nights. But this apparently blows it out of the water. I don't know too much else about it aside from the experience was pretty immersive and pretty great. And it is that +1. It's not just staring at a VR screen. It's super immersive. There's that added value is the word I'm looking for.
Yeah, that gets a major yikes from me. I will not be there for it. But you know,
What if you get to go for free? Like, say for whatever reason, Steamroller Studios finds our Galaxy's Edge series and like, these cats, they got something. We want them to experience this firsthand. And they said, Jonathan, Adam, you can experience this new thing we got for free if you give your honest opinion. You'd say yeah to that, right?
I'd let you do the episode and bring on a guest to talk about it.
One of these days, I'll get you so addicted to these haunts. I promise you, it'll happen one day. Oh, man. So those are some highlights from IAAPA. At the end of IAAPA, Disney kind of gave a little tease to D23, the destination D23, rather, not the full thing. And
I can't keep track of all these events. There's like 300. It's like seems like every 2 months Disney's hosting a fan event. I don't even know.
I know. Disney Plus Day, Destination D23, D23, Star Wars Celebration, Investor Day, so many things. From what I heard, it was kind of, I mean, obviously I've got some articles here, but the reception I heard was kind of underwhelming, like some of the things we'll talk about later on. Fantasmic is getting a change. Finding Nemo the musical is getting a change.
Yeah, I know they're removing your favorite scene from Fantasmic, the Pocahontas scene. How do you feel about that?
Well, there's two things wrong with that statement. One is the obvious one, the one that you're kind of poking at. I hate the Pocahontas movie. I think it's probably the worst Disney movie that I can think of, just because it was so. Say what you will about Jeffrey Katzenberg. That was not his best moment. That was crap. trying to turn the story of Pocahontas, and forgive me, I don't remember her actual name, but yeah, turning that into basically trying to get that Beauty and the Beast crowd over, that romance, make it a romance, and just make it's awful. It's awful. I know that's what you're trying to get me to go off on. I did. I gave you a little. I've actually never done Fantasmic though. That's my big blind spot as far as nighttime shows go. I know you're not hot about it. But Bella, I don't know if y'all remember Bella from episode 4. She was on our Horror Night show, but I know she's very excited about the return of Fantasmic. They're losing the Pocahontas scene. We don't know what the new scene's going to be. Or I think they're getting, no, they never announced the Pocahontas scene is going away. That's the rumor though, because there is that new scene coming in, which we don't know anything about. Yeah. But I'm excited that the show's reopening because that means there's a chance for me to experience it for the very first time.
To this day, the only nighttime show that I can say would actively deter me from going to just rides with short waits is Happily Ever After. Fantasmic is awful. It's a separate theater. You have to go 30 miles away. You sit on concrete slabs. You are trying to be upsold popcorn and lighty things to keep the kids busy while you wait for 30 minutes because you have to get there 30 minutes in advance to even get a seat. And then the show is just incredibly underwhelming. The water screens are blurry and haven't been updated since the 90s. The whole show just feels outdated and rough. So I'm glad that it's getting the love that it needs. And I will still be riding other attractions while it plays.
Okay, Jonathan, you can marathon Star Tours. I'll go watch Fantasmic's big return.
All right.
But will you be there for the new Finding Nemo musical show? They did change the name to Finding Nemo, the Big, the Blue, and Beyond. And it's a reimagining, they're calling it. Not necessarily a replacement, it's a reimagining. Little story retool. Apparently it's in the Finding Dory timeline. Whatever that means.
Story retool. That's a completely new story.
Well, here's my thing. My theory, because again, they told us nothing. It's like what they told us, what's new with Tron? We're building it. That's what they said. With Finding Nemo, my theory is that the whole it's in the Finding Dory timeline isn't they're retelling Finding Dory, is that's going to be the frame narrative. The frame narrative is going to be at the Marine Life Institute. I believe it's I haven't seen the movie since it was in theaters. It was good. I just haven't seen it since. I think that's what it's called though. We'll start out there. And Marlon will be like, oh, yeah, remember that time I lost Nemo? And Dory's like, I remember. And,
Dory just suddenly became Mickey Mouse.
I guess Ellen sounds like Mickey Mouse to me. I don't know. But then it'll go on basically the normal show. They still got some of the same songs. I don't know, but Jonathan,
I'm prepared. You don't even have to ask. I'm just going to cut you off and say I'm prepared for this to be an absolute dumpster fire. Given Disney's cost-cutting measures, the fact that they don't want to pay the actors to come back, and they're shortening the show to make it cheaper, and you had Finding Nemo the musical. You brought in Robert Lopez to come write songs, and you had these fantastic puppets, and my guess is this is going to be hampered because the theme park audience apparently can't handle a 30-minute long show. That's just too long of a production. But yeah, this show was always it was near and dear to my heart. I think as far as theme park musicals go, it could only be competed with by Universal's seasonal Grinchmas Holiday Spectacular, which was the only thing able to match the level of live singing, elaborate sets, and even then, Grinchmas can only do so much. Nemo's got those incredible puppets and acrobatics and everything else, but I'm just disappointed. I'll see it, but yeah, I'll see it. Unlike I won't see Fantasmic, but I'm just not happy about it.
Yeah, I know. I have higher hopes, I think. But also I have nothing to go off of. I know it's probably bad news to trust that Disney's going to make the right decisions at this current state that it's in. But I mean, Festival of the Lion King came back. I don't believe they had major changes, and that's an incredible show. I know a lot of things have been cut down to what they should be. My guess, though, is that it's going to be a minimal change, which is why they're using the word reimagining. I think it's really just the frame, but I have nothing to go off of.
Yeah, that's fair.
But the songs will still be there. You'll still, I know you'll still be like in the big blue world, and
absolutely.
And they have to keep go with the flow, right?
Yeah, go with the flow is iconic.
Yeah.
But yeah, to move to a happier note, if we may.
Yeah, go ahead.
Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout got an update. James Gunn has finished filming it. All the original cast is back, including Glenn Close.
Wait a minute, Jonathan.
Uh-oh. What?
Wrong Guardians ride.
Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. I said Mission Breakout.
It's not his fault, folks. It's not his fault. I just put Guardians of the Galaxy in there.
No, I am very.
I also told him Botanicus was spelled with 2 C's this morning. We're filming this on Spider Monday when we put out our ET episode. It's been a mess for me with my unclear notes, so don't send your hate mail to Jonathan. Send it to Balthazar Banshee.
It's Cosmic Rewind. The biggest thing that I am excited about is not the fact that it's an original attraction at Disney World that's not a clone. It's not the fact that James Gunn is actually involved and all the original cast is reprising their roles, even though Dave Bautista is upset at Disney. Those are all good things, but or not even the fact that it's actually opening in next year, like within the next 7 months, probably. The thing that I was most happy about was that Disney released an official HD high-res poster, and it looks absolutely epic. I love it when theme park attractions get posters, and my heart absolutely soared to see that there was a official poster for this attraction that looked straight out of the movie theater. And yeah, that's I was just happy. It brought me joy.
Yeah, that's gonna be the thumbnail for this video, isn't it?
It might be. I don't know.
Ooh, stay tuned. I mean, by this point, you've been staring at it for 40 minutes, I'm sure, folks. But for us, it's a big mystery. I'm excited to ride this roller coaster. Glenn Close is coming back, which means she's not dead in the movie. because that planet got blown up, I believe, in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Another movie I haven't seen since it's been out in theaters. So I'm very behind on things. I'll get to it again in 2022, I am sure. Yeah, it's a new ride at Epcot, which could always use some tender love and care. It'll be a thrill ride for Epcot. I know some purists don't love that. But, it fits in because Peter Quill went to the Universe of Energy as a child.
I remember in that theme park design book by, I think it was Steve Alcorn, he was really upset about the idea of a roller coaster in Epcot. So I think this is really funny.
Well, actually, I lied. It's not a roller coaster. That's not the termage they're using. And so his fears shall be quelled. This isn't a roller coaster, Jonathan. It's a story coaster.
Oh, right. That's right. They got to compete because Universal's got those billboards all throughout Orlando that say Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure Most Thrilling Story Coaster, which is an absolutely hilarious marketing technique to go with for branding. And honestly, that probably says something about the guest surveys, because Adam and I got a survey for Velocicoaster when we were done. They're asking us which of the ride's aspects we thought were the strongest and which were the weakest, and to rate them, which presumably is used for marketing. So my guess is that they probably did the guest surveys for Hagrid's, and the guest response to the fact that it had a story was overwhelmingly positive, and presumably one of the ride's biggest selling points. So the fact that it was thrilling and that it told a story. Because I know with Velocicoaster, all the ads say 2 launches, 4 inversions, and those are the 2 things that they're advertising. So presumably the launches and the inversions were to the test audiences, and to us the most notable aspects of the ride, which is just, as somebody who's done marketing as a job, it interests me.
No, go into the nerdiness. We don't want to be some normal, 2 white guys with a microphone theme park podcast. This is what sets us apart. Jonathan did marketing jobs, and I have an annual pass, so it all evens out. And to close out our little rundown, and of course, this is not everything, make sure you check the articles and the show notes, the links in the show notes for all the information out there. And I'd also suggest Orlando Park Stop. They have theme park journalist professionals running down everything there in more detail. I'll put the link there as well. There's going to be so many links to these show notes. I think our audience is going to be really, really satisfied with that.
Oh, yeah.
I was going to use another food analogy, and it wasn't coming. All the same, prepare to be whelmed. Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser, as more information and more clips, and kids are going to love it. That I have no doubt.
Yeah, there's a lot to say, and there's not a lot of nice things to say. The fact of the matter is, it's good.
Yeah.
It's not what people want.
Yeah.
And it's not what you would expect when paying the price that Disney is asking to pay.
For sure.
And I think it's also very confused as to its audience. And I feel like we saw this with the NBA experience, where it was designed as an experience to be very appealing to people who were into the NBA, but the experience itself was structured as though a person was new to basketball in the NBA, with very kind of low level experiences like dribble a ball, shoot the hoops, make 3 hoops, and then giving them some sort of trading card with like a player that they would have to know. Like, I don't know if that's exactly how it happened, but that was the vibe that I got from all of the reviews. And I feel like this is going to be the exact same thing. You're going to have these kids, all they want to do is just see Rey and Kylo and Chewie because they grew up on the sequel trilogy. And
that's not going to happen here.
No, you're going to get new characters.
I don't imagine it happen. Maybe that's something they haven't revealed yet. I can't imagine that happening on this experience, though.
No, absolutely not. And it just seems like it's going to be incredibly difficult. And I think ultimately it comes down to the fact that it's a huge problem. Is you have to design for the lowest common denominator. You have to design this for the guest who doesn't want to LARP, who doesn't want to get involved in the story, and who just kind of wants to watch. Yeah. But you also have to design it for the people who want to get active. I mean, I think that's a huge problem, is when you do things that need volunteers and active participation, it's always going to be harder to design those things, because then you introduce a level of awkwardness if people don't want to do it, or if something happens. And then you're also dealing with the fact that because this is like a cruise, you want to make sure that the experience is good for every family who's there. Combine that with the fact that we learned that there's apparently other upcharge experiences during the cruise. The fact that you won't actually get to hold the real lightsaber that Disney has been proclaiming around, but it will instead likely be part of a show scene or a show element, and not something that you can interact with. And the fact that people didn't really like what Disney did with Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run in pursuit of interactivity, which appears to be what they're expanding upon here. I don't think that this is going to last more. And, I might be wrong. I don't think it's going to last more than 12 months.
The whole experience, you think it'll be closed in a year?
Absolutely.
Oh. Ooh, wow. That's wow. Okay.
It's booked up now, but I don't think the rich people are going to want to do it. They're just going to want to stay at one of the nicer hotels that's on the monorail line to the kingdom.
Yeah. I remember seeing that video with Josh D'Amaro, and he's got the lightsaber in his hands, and the flashlight just pops in through those smoke holes. And I was like, kind of like, oh, that's what it is. And you could say, well, the camera's not capturing it the right way, or he's not doing it right. It'll look better in real life. Still, like that, just seeing, and I don't know what they could do. And here's the thing, I think they're doing as much as they can do to try to immerse it, and doing what you said to try to appeal to everyone. And with that game that they've been advertising on the deck, where you can do the combat flight training, something like that, where you push the button, basically do Millennium Falcon Smuggler's Run, but on a single screen, in one position, not like how it is in Smugglers. It doesn't look like it's $2,000, but I don't know. It's weird. I was thinking about this earlier, and with Universal and Harry Potter. Now, I'm not going to bring up Universal this time. With Pandora, we'll say in Disney. With Pandora, there was like no expectation. Hold on. Hi. Oh, cool. Your Christmas gift came in.
Ooh.
Yeah. So yeah, I won't bring up Universal again. We'll stay in the same Disney family. With Pandora, the world of Avatar, expectations were so low for that, because Avatar, not most, but a lot of people will be like, yeah, I saw Avatar in theaters, saw it in 3D, saw it in, I think it might have been IMAX. I don't know what was out at the time, but at least 3D, people were just like, minds were blown, super immersive, loved it. And then when it came out on Blu-ray, and over time, people kind of grew a little bit sour towards it. They didn't love it as much. So when Disney's like, hey, we bought the rights to make Avatar Land, people are like, but why? Why is this happening? Expectations were through the floor, even though Joe Rohde was a part of it. You never know how things are going to be. And now I think it's my most beloved theme park land, period. I love it so much. And a lot of people have emotional, spiritual experiences there. And not like, weird, like, I don't know what the word is, but it's not like, I don't know. Not everyone's doing the religion of Navi is what I'm trying to say. It's not that kind of spiritual experience. It's just like a transcendental experience on like Flight of Passage, or they really love the calming atmosphere of that entire land. Whereas with Star Wars, we've been with that and we have loved it for, 45 years at this point. Our imaginations have been filled with Star Wars. When we think about our Star Wars story, our Star Wars adventure, we have these kind of preconceived notions of what that could entail. And when you say, hey, we're gonna have a Star Wars land, your mind just explodes with possibilities. And when you see those possibilities kind of narrowed down to what is in Galaxy's Edge, which is still a great land. And every time Scott Trowbridge talks about Star Wars lands or Star Wars experiences at Disney World, I can't help but get excited, because that man just has such quiet but energized passion for what he does. There is a sense of underwhelm, I think. Like, I love Galaxy's Edge. I think it's great. We did a whole series about it on this channel, which you can watch. Click the card above if you're on YouTube. All the same, people are like, well, it should have had this thing, or it should have been less exclusive, these experiences. Why is the food not normal? Why is the Millennium Falcon this? Why is the Rise of the Resistance that? Why is there no Wampa? So on and so forth. And with Galactic Starcruiser, I think we're running into a similar case, but with a higher price tag, where it's like Star Wars Hotel. Your mind blows up with the possibilities. And Disney has the hard choice of fulfilling that promise of whatever you imagined. But the thing is, everyone's got an idea of what that could be, like the LARPing. But I'll tell you one thing. The most interesting thing to me, and the thing I want to do least at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, is pretend to be part of the story. Like, I get anxious whenever the First Order troopers like, so tell me what you think of the rebellion. Give us all your secrets. Why do you look stupid? I'm like, and then I come up with a good, retort like 2 minutes later in the interrogation room and said, oh, I should have said I thought this was Star Tours. Stupid. I just said I have a hat. Like, So I know if I paid $2,000 to do the Star Wars Galactic Starcruiser, that would be me for 2 days, and that wouldn't be a great time.
Yeah.
So like having the training module, having these training situations, having that cantina with such a generic song. Oh my Lord. I don't know if you saw that clip.
I saw the clip.
And I guess if you translate all the Star Wars songs, they'd be generic, but that was generic in the way Disney songs at the parks are.
I do think, to kind of bounce off what you're saying though, there is an element that I'm looking forward to, in the sense that part of what they were trying to do with Galaxy's Edge they couldn't do because you're never going to get that sensation in what that land is. And that is just the idea of I'm wandering through a Star Wars town and kind of getting to explore, like being able to just walk into Oga's Cantina without having to make reservations 30 days in advance on your phone, only to get shoved in with another family, or,
without a chair.
Exactly. And,
paying $100 for a lightsaber and $80 for a droid, and so many upcharges.
So maybe the meals will be better at the hotel. Maybe you'll actually get to enjoy the food and the atmosphere and the setting in that kind of exclusive environment. But then, I look at the itinerary and it's like, oh, we got learn how to play sabacc for 2 hours, and a sabacc tournament.
We play sabacc at home. That's like a family pastime.
Exactly.
And I'm being serious. It's not a joke. Like, my brother has a sabacc game, and we played it for weeks, when he got it.
Like, so what value is that going to add to you? And in one sense, it kind of reminds me of like a family reunion. Like, I know when I have family reunions, I go to them and it's like at the beginning of the week, I learn how to play a game, and then that's just the game everybody's playing throughout the trip. Maybe they're trying to build that sense of camaraderie and make the families friends. But that's the thing, is you can't predict all that. And it's going to make it really interesting. And I promise this will be the last time I try to tie something into Universal.
Oh, you're going to do the dirty naughty thing? I see. Ooh,
yeah,
bad boy.
Yeah. I with Wizarding World Diagon Alley, one of the things that you want to be able to have that intimate wand experience that Harry had in the first movie. And so, they did it in Hogsmeade and it was fine, but it was way too small. But when they did it in Diagon Alley, they were able to balance the demand for such an experience without losing the intimacy or the quietness. Like, it's, when you go into that show, it's very quiet and everybody's kind of watching pensively, and it's dark and there's musical chimes. And, apparently you get something like that in Savi's workshop with the lightsaber lighting up, and apparently Yoda makes a voice cameo. But like,
Ollivanders is free.
Exactly.
You have to buy the wand, but the experience is free.
Exactly. And I think that's part of where Universal has been succeeding, is, taking a look at what is the franchise, what do people want from the franchise, and how do we give that to the people, with the glaring exception of Fast and Furious Supercharged.
Of course. Well, I guess Terry Koo agrees with you.
Yeah. But I mean, like, even like Jimmy Fallon, like, what more could you want from that ride than a series of cheesy jokes while you drive through New York? I mean, I feel like it's very much in line with what you would expect from turning the Tonight Show into a ride.
Yeah. So, I mean, on the one hand, going back to Starcruiser, I think it's going to have the issue of matching up to expectations. And as much as marketing is trying, people's expectations keep on getting lower and lower and lower and lower, to the point Jenny Nicholson's like, if they're just not showing us the best parts, this is not going to be a great time for a lot of people. Maybe that's what it's going to be. I don't know if I have the dismal forecast that you do as far as how long this is going to last, although Defunctland even said, I can't wait for future me to make this video in 5 years. It'll be interesting, at least. We'll see how it goes. Yeah, that's been our rundown of the past couple of weeks of announcements. We had a 2-part episode, so we kind of took a week break on recording, so we did not get this episode out when all that was brand new and fresh, but we hope you enjoyed it anyway.
I apologize for my negativity in this episode. I feel like I was very Debbie Downer.
Well, no, you really hyped up Mark Woodbury.
I did.
Like, you really puffed him up. Again, check our show notes for even more information, because we only touched on a little bit. We didn't have all the time in the world, but we hope you enjoyed it all the same. Let us know what you think in the YouTube comments about Disney Genie. Have you seen the Defunctland Fast Pass episode? Hype it up. Tell your friends, tell your family, even if they don't like theme parks, because you know what everyone hates? Lines. And so they'll really want to know why they hate it. Mark Woodbury, I think I said already. The new changes coming to Disney, Guardians of the Galaxy, Galactic Starcruiser. Anyway, let us know what you think. Spotify Mobile. Let us know what you think in the YouTube comments. Let us know on Twitter. Jonathan, where can they find you on Twitter?
At Wesley As You Wish.
And you can find me on Twitter at AdamJ_film. And collectively, you can follow us at Workshop TP. And I really suggest you follow us on there because we post all the updates on Twitter. We'll post some. I want to post more on Instagram. I just haven't figured out to do the thing I want to do on there yet. But when I figure out the thing I want to do, boy, it's going to be worth it to follow us on Instagram at Theme Park Workshop. And I guess we didn't have time for Banshee. Sorry, Banshee. But you can follow our little miscreant Balthazar Banshee at Disney Banshee on Twitter if you really like that theme park signature snark.
All right.
One more thing. Thank you, patrons, Chandler DeRoche and Landon Kanoki.
All right, and that concludes our episode of Theme Park Workshop for the week. This has been episode 7. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time. This episode has been produced by Adam Johnson and co-created by Jonathan Edwards.